The message arrived at 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time, and looked less like a desperate cry for help than a badly formatted spam email. Subject, urgent request, war, assist immediate. The attachment contained a stream of symbols, broken, grammar, and the occasional English word death, fleet, destroy, help. Most of the Interstellar Communication Authority dismissed it as noise, another malformed alien signal that translators hadn't yet cracked. But Captain Annika Serrano read it twice, rubbed her eyes, and muttered, "That's not noise, that's panic." By dawn, a debate had erupted across Earth's space agencies. Some argued it was a trap, others that it wasn't their problem. Humanity's first jump drive vessels were barely a decade old. They weren't ready to wade into galactic wars. But Serrano had served long enough to recognize a distress call. Someone out there pressed send on this, she told the committee. Maybe they wanted someone else. Doesn't matter. We got it. So either we show up, or we prove the galaxy right that we're too timid to matter. 3 weeks later, a fleet left Saul's space. The ECS Horizon led the way, once a Navy cruiser, now hastily upgraded to act as flagship. It was joined by a patchwork escort of retrofitted cargo haulers, exploration ships, and 2 civilian liners whose captains volunteered their hulls to carry supplies. Humanity didn't have a grand navy, not yet. What they had was willingness. Serrano paced Horizon's bridge as the fleet prepared for its first synchronized jump. She was tall, sharp-eyed, with a clipped tone that could silence a room. Her crew knew her as unflappable, though her dry humor occasionally slipped through. "Remember," she said, voice steady, "we are diplomats first, guns second, duct tape somewhere in the top 5. On her left sat Dr. Rajiv Patel, Horizon's chief engineer, hunched over a console that bristled with cables and tools. Rajiv had a restless energy, the kind of man who solved problems by creating 3 more and fixing them all at once. His jumpsuit bore burn marks, and his hair stuck out in multiple directions. "The duct tape remark is unscientific slander," he said without looking up. "That's military-grade adhesive I requisitioned legally." On her right stood Maya Torres, the fleet's cultural liaison. Where Serrano was flint, Maya was warmth, dark curls tucked behind her ears, a notebook always in hand. She had lobbied, hard to join, arguing that first contact meant more than weapons. She believed with almost religious conviction that humans could be the galaxy's good neighbors. The signal's syntax resembled insectoid pheromone lattice, she explained earlier. Whoever sent it, they were desperate enough to bend their entire language around ours. That's not a mistake. That's hope. The 4th presence on Serrano's bridge did not belong to the Navy at all. Jackson Reed, officially logistics officer, unofficially smuggler-turned-volunteer, lounged in his chair as though it were a bar stool. His ship, the Wanderlust, had been conscripted for supply running, though Serrano suspected half its compartments hid contraband coffee beans and questionable liquor. Reed had a grin that hovered between charming and irritating. "Captain," he said, "I've taken bets with my crew. Half think we're sailing into glory. Half think we're sailing into a meat grinder. Which side should I put money on?" "Neither," Serrano replied without hesitation. "Put it on survival. Pays better." Reed chuckled. "Always knew I liked your style." The countdown began. The jump drive thrummed like a beating heart, the fleet aligning to Horizon's signal. Serrano's gaze swept across her mismatched ships on the tactical display, each a floating piece of Earth's stubborn will. "On my mark," she said, voice calm. 3, 2, 1, jump. Space folded. The fleet vanished. They emerged into a star system shrouded in smoke and fire. The main planet loomed below, oceans glimmering under siege. Dozens of vessels orbited in desperate defense, sleek, angular. Ships that clearly belonged to the alien civilization who had sent the call. Their formation was ragged, several already burning. At the system's edge, strange predatory silhouettes closed in. Larger ships, bristling with weapons, their hulls jagged like teeth. Contact, multiple signatures, the sensor officer reported. One fleet defending, one fleet advancing. Serrano's jaw tightened. Well, no committee meeting now. On the main screen, a transmission arrived. A tall insectoid figure, chitin gleaming under harsh light, mandibles clicking rapidly. The translation matrix stuttered, then spat out halting words. Who are you? Humans. You, not the ones we called. Maya stepped forward, her voice calm, careful. You sent for help. We received it. We came. The insectoid's mandibles spread wide. Shock, perhaps horror. Behind him, his ship trembled under impact. Mistake. Not meant for primitive species. Go! You cannot fight them. They are Draketh. They devour. A tremor passed through the human bridge crew, but Serrano did not flinch. Too late to turn around, she said evenly. Your mistake is our responsibility now. Reed whistled low. Well, Captain, looks like your bet's paying off. Patel's fingers danced over controls, muttering calculations. Their weapons output dwarfs ours. Their shield arrays exceed anything we've modeled. So yes, statistically speaking, we are doomed. Maya ignored him, eyes fixed on the alien transmission. But you're not alone anymore. For a heartbeat, silence filled the bridge. Serrano felt the weight of it. The absurdity, the danger, the sheer audacity of humanity showing up to a war they didn't understand. Then she straightened her shoulders. All ships, form defensive line. We may not be who they expected, but we're what they got. Let's make it count. The horizon outside flared with fire as the enemy fleet advanced. The Draketh did not wait for introductions. Even as the Rulathi transmission cut off, crimson lances of energy streaked across the void. One of the insectoid defender's ships erupted in a blossom of fire. The Draketh fleet advanced in brutal, perfect formation. No hesitation, no mercy. Hostile intent confirmed, the sensor officer barked. They're coming straight at us. On Horizon's bridge, Captain Annika Serrano stood tall, spine rigid, though her pulse pounded. Her fleet was smaller, weaker, and built for exploration rather than war. But retreat wasn't an option. All ships, she ordered. Interpose between the defenders and the attackers. Weapons free. Make every shot count. The order carried across the ragtag flotilla. Merchant captains who'd never fired a weapon armed point defense turrets. Surveyors, with outdated sensors strained to track enemy vectors. Even the civilian liners, stripped of luxury trappings, turned their reinforced hulls toward the oncoming storm. Humanity had no battleships, but it had grit. Dr. Rajiv Patel was already moving before Serrano finished speaking. His console bloomed, with equations and erratic schematics. We can't outgun them, he muttered, half to himself. So we'll have to out-stupid them. Serrano arched a brow. Doctor, this is not the time for... Already on it, Patel snapped, fingers dancing. Sending commands to the mining drones in cargo hold 6, stripping safety protocols. If I angle their propulsion arrays and overload their cores... Rajiv, Serrano said sharply, are you turning my survey drones into flying bombs? Precisely. Improvised explosive decoys. If it works, they'll think we have more firepower than we do. A beat of silence. Serrano exhaled through her nose. Do it. But if we survive, you're explaining to procurement why our drones are now shrapnel. Gladly. Patel grinned like a man inventing his own doom. Maya Torres leaned forward, eyes fixed on the Rulathi ships, wavering in formation. The insectoids were brave but clearly rigid in their tactics, responding to every attack in the same stilted patterns. They don't know how to adapt, she whispered. They're predictable, and the Draketh are exploiting it. Serrano glanced at her. Suggestions? Give me a channel into the Draketh comm bands. Reed snorted from his station. What? Gonna sweet-talk them into leaving? Maya's smile was small, determined. Not sweet-talk, distract. Moments later, the Drakath fleet's tactical frequencies filled with an unexpected intrusion. Human voices singing wildly off-key, snippets of nursery rhymes, fragments of Shakespeare, even recorded laughter. Confused, several enemy ships staggered, out of formation, as their comm officers scrambled to filter the noise. Maya's eyes gleamed. Confusion buys us time. Reed had no illusions about heroism. He believed in angles, loopholes, and getting the job done. Now, as the battle heated, his instincts screamed at him to move supplies. Without fuel, without munitions, Horizon's defenses would fold in hours. "Captain," he called. "Permission to break formation. Wanderlust can slip behind that asteroid cluster and resupply the forward ships. Smuggler tricks, you know. Shadow. Signatures, bounce scans." Serrano hesitated. Splitting assets in a first engagement was reckless. But Reed's confidence carried weight. He knew how to slip through danger where others would be caught. "You've got one chance," she said. "Don't make me regret it." Reed flashed a grin. "Regret's not in my business model." The battle unfolded in chaos. Humanity's improvised decoys launched from Horizon's holds, streaking toward the Drakath in erratic arcs. Enemy targeting systems locked on and wasted precious volleys, obliterating the drones. A handful detonated close enough to score the first real hits, rattling enemy shields. The Rulathi fleet, startled by the distraction, surged forward under Serrano's direction. Their rigid tactics loosened as humans interwove with them. Merchant. Haulers blocking shots, survey ships feinting retreats, Horizon anchoring the line. "Status?" Serrano demanded. "Shields at 60%, shouted Tactical. "But their advance has slowed." Patel whooped as one of his jury-rigged drones blew apart a Drakath frigate's engine cluster. "See? Mad science wins again." "Don't. Get cocky," Serrano replied. Maya caught Serrano's eye. "They're listening," she said softly. "The Rulathi. Watching how we improvise. They're starting to copy us." On the display, a Rulathi ship broke from its rigid line to exploit a weakness in the Drakath flank, something Serrano hadn't expected from them. The maneuver wasn't perfect, but it drew blood. Humanity's unpredictability was already spreading. Reed's voice crackled over comms. "Supplies delivered. And for the record, Captain, their scanners are about as lazy as border patrols back home. Smuggled half my crew through their net and back before they blinked." Serrano pinched the bridge of her nose. "Reed, stop comparing interstellar war to your criminal record." "Criminal?" "Captain, I prefer entrepreneurial history." The skirmish stretched into hours. Humanity's fleet held, bruised but unbroken. The Rulathi, emboldened by their strange new allies, fought harder than before. The Drakath finally broke off their initial assault, regrouping at the system's edge. The battlefield fell into uneasy quiet. Burned wreckage drifted like tombstones, but the defenders still stood. On Horizon's bridge, exhaustion mingled with disbelief. "They retreated," Patel said, almost in awe. "Temporarily," Serrano corrected. She studied the tactical overlay, where the enemy fleet lingered like wolves circling outside firelight. "This was a probing strike. The main force hasn't even arrived." The realization landed like lead. Humanity had survived its first fight, but the true storm was still on its way. Maya spoke softly, breaking the silence. "They thought we couldn't help, that we shouldn't even be here. But today we made a difference." Reed leaned back with a smirk. "Yeah, we also painted a giant target on our backs. Word's out now. Humans punch above our weight." Patel drummed restless fingers on the console. "Then we'll need bigger punches." Serrano allowed herself a thin smile. Her crew was weary, battered, running on luck and caffeine. But their spirits hadn't broken. "One battle won doesn't end a war," she said quietly. "But it proves we belong in it." Outside the viewport, distant glimmers marked the gathering of the Draketh's main fleet. Darkness massed on the horizon, inevitable, overwhelming, and humanity, absurdly, was still standing. The Draketh main fleet arrived 3 days later. Where the first attack had been brutal, this one was apocalyptic. Horizon's sensors counted more than 100 warships sliding into formation, jagged silhouettes blotting out the stars, their hulls bristling with weapons that made human ships look like toys. The Rulathi defenders shrank back at the sight, their disciplined formation wavering. Captain Annika Serrano felt the air grow heavy on Horizon's bridge. Her fleet was patched together, battle-worn from the skirmish. Against this, they looked like a picket fence facing a hurricane. She inhaled slowly, keeping her voice even. "Comms, open a channel to all ships." Her words rang across the flotilla. "We didn't come out here to watch people die. I won't pretend this will be easy, but humanity survived worse than hopeless odds. Ice ages, plagues, wars that should have ended us. Every time we adapted, every time we endured. So hear me now. We hold the line. For them. For us. For the chance that we don't have to live in a galaxy where the strong devour the weak." Silence followed. Then, one by one, the captains responded. A merchant captain. "Horizon, we're with you." A surveyor. "Point us where we're needed." Even a civilian liner. "Our shields are weak, but our hulls thick. We'll block if we must." The Rulathi, listening, clicked mandibles in disbelief. Yet some of their voices joined the chorus. "We will stand." Serrano nodded once. "Then let's begin." Dr. Rajiv Patel hadn't slept in 40 hours. His workstation resembled the aftermath of a hurricane. Schematics scrawled across, half a dozen pads, parts scattered like metallic confetti. He muttered equations under his breath, chasing impossible solutions. Finally, he shoved a module across the console with a triumphant shout. "Hybridization complete!" Serrano leaned over. "Explain before I regret asking." Patel's eyes gleamed. "Human reactors feed into Rulathi shield matrices. Our output is crude, but their fields are efficient. Together, we can overcharge a shield bubble beyond anything either fleet could manage alone." Serrano frowned. "Overcharge sounds like explode, only if miscalibrated by more than, say, 30%. Rajiv," he smiled sheepishly. "It will work, probably." Serrano closed her eyes briefly, then gestured to engineering. "Get it installed. If he's wrong, I want a list of who to haunt." Meanwhile, Maya Torres walked among the Rulathi crews, translator drone hovering at her shoulder. The insectoids were rigid, every movement dictated by protocol. But under strain, cracks showed. A young officer trembled at his post, unable to improvise when a console sparked. Maya crouched beside him, speaking gently. "Listen, on Earth we have a saying, when the plan fails, make a new one. There's no shame in trying something different." The officer clicked uncertainly. "Deviation, punished." "Not today," Maya said firmly. "Today, deviation saves lives." She handed him a crude human patch kit, duct tape and sealant. "Try this." The officer hesitated, then patched the console. It held. His mandibles clacked in astonishment. Word spread quickly. The human's strange willingness to break rules, to improvise with scraps, began to infect the Rulathi crews. Slowly, awkwardly, they loosened their rigid patterns. Jackson Reed, of course, found opportunity where others saw only disaster. "Captain," he drawled over comms, "I've got a plan to slow the Draketh advance. Risky, brilliant, and moderately illegal." "Moderately?" Serrano asked dryly. Reed grinned. "Depends on which interstellar trade laws you ask about. His idea. Smuggle strike teams through the asteroid belt, using Wanderlust's stealth mods to insert sabotage crews onto Draketh supply haulers, blow their logistics, bleed them before the main fight." Patel, overhearing, muttered, That's insane. Insane is our brand, Reed shot back. Serrano considered. Risky, yes, but potentially decisive, and Reed was reckless enough to pull it off. Fine, take a team. But if you die, I'm not writing your eulogy. Reed winked. Wouldn't want one. I'd rather sell t-shirts. The battle came swift and merciless. Dracath warships surged forward, their weapons cutting through the void. Horizon's hybrid shields flared, holding barely. Merchant haulers interlaced fire with Rulathi ships, creating a lattice of overlapping defenses. Civilian liners absorbed hits meant for others, their reinforced hulls groaning. Patel's system strained at the limits. Output at 120%, he shouted. If it climbs higher, we'll vaporize ourselves. Then don't let it climb higher, Serrano snapped. Reed's strike teams infiltrated enemy haulers, planting charges. Explosions rippled across Dracath supply lines, forcing their formation to fracture. Maya moved among the Rulati bridge crews, coaching them through improvisation. Don't repeat the same evasive turn. Vary it. Yes, like that. See? You're harder to predict. The insectoids clicked in newfound excitement as they adapted, surviving where rigid obedience would have doomed them. For hours, chaos reigned. Humanity fought with desperation and creativity, turning scrap into strategy, weakness into strength. The Rulathi fought beside them, slowly shedding centuries of rigid doctrine, but victory was far from assured. The Dracath pressed harder, bringing forward their massive flagship, a monstrous vessel dwarfing Horizon, its cannons glowing with power. One volley from it annihilated a Rulathi cruiser, scattering wreckage across the void. Patel swore under his breath. We can't take that thing head on. Serrano's eyes narrowed. Then we don't. We take it from the side. She outlined. A desperate maneuver. Lure the flagship into the asteroid field. Collapse a section onto it using mining charges. It required perfect timing, and every ship they had left. Reed's voice cut in, exhilarated. Captain, that's the kind of reckless stupidity I live for. Maya placed a hand on Serrano's shoulder. If this works, we change everything. Not just for them, for how the galaxy sees us. Serrano's lips curved into a thin smile. Then let's make history. The plan went into motion. Human ships darted like gnats around the flagship, taunting, drawing its fire. Reed led saboteurs through the belt, planting explosives along key fault lines. Patel's hybrid shields screamed under strain, barely holding as the fleet retreated step by step toward the trap. At last, the flagship crossed the threshold. Now, Serrano ordered. Charges detonated. Asteroids shifted, collapsing inward like a steel jaw. The flagship thrashed, cannons blasting rocks apart, but the momentum was too great. A mountain-sized fragment slammed into its hull, breaching. Shields, secondary blasts ripped across its surface. The beast shuddered. Still alive, still dangerous, but bleeding. On Horizon's bridge, silence fell for a heartbeat as the impossible became real. Then the crew erupted into cheers. Serrano allowed herself the smallest smile. We've bought time. Not victory, not yet, but time. Outside, the Dracath fleet pulled back to regroup, unwilling to press further after their flagship's mauling. Humanity and the Rulathi, bloodied but unbroken, still held the system, and for the first time, the defenders believed survival might be possible. The Dracath flagship did not die easily. Though battered and half-buried in the asteroid field, its cannons still glowed, its engines still churned. Each pulse of fire erased smaller defenders in streaks of incandescent ruin, and beyond it, the rest of the Dracath fleet tightened its formation, rallying around their wounded Leviathan. Captain Annika Serrano stood firm on Horizon's bridge. Her jaw was set, her uniform streaked with ash from the last hull breach. Every muscle screamed for rest, but her voice remained steady. Status? Shields at 30%, Tactical shouted. Hull integrity compromised in 3 sections. We can't take another broadside, Patel muttered furiously over his console, hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. If I push the hybrid reactor any further, we'll collapse spacetime, in a very localized and very fatal manner. Then don't, Serrano said. Her eyes flicked to the drifting enemy flagship. We need another way. Maya Torres moved between exhausted crew and their Rulathi counterparts, translator drone buzzing as it parsed frantic dialogue. The insectoids were faltering, despair creeping back into their eyes. She slammed her hand against the console to get their attention. Look at me, she said, voice low but fierce. You've survived this long because you adapted. You broke your own rules and you lived. Don't stop now. The translator rendered her words into chittering tones. The Rulathi stiffened, then slowly straightened. They had believed improvisation was chaos. Now, under fire, they began to see it as salvation. Maya exhaled. They were listening. And more importantly, they were learning. Meanwhile, Jackson Reed reported in with a grin that Serrano swore could be heard through the comm static. Captain, good news and bad news. Good news. My strike teams planted enough explosives in the asteroid belt to make a fireworks show visible 3 systems over. Bad news, we've got 1 shot to use them before the Drakath figure it out. Make it count, Serrano said. Always do. Reed's smirk faded, his tone sharpening with rare seriousness. But Captain, this is going to be ugly. If we spring it wrong, the blast wipes us as well. Serrano met his eyes through the hollow feed. Then we spring it right. The battle's climax built like a storm. The Drakath advanced again, relentless, their flagship clawing free of the asteroid wreckage. Horizon shook under each strike, its decks groaning. The fleet's formation threatened to unravel. Patel, suddenly, bolted upright. Wait, I've got it! Serrano raised an eyebrow. Please tell me it isn't another death trap. Not a trap, an amplifier. He jabbed at his schematics, voice tumbling out in breathless excitement. If we reroute our hybrid field into Reed's explosive grid, we can overcharge the detonation. The blast won't just destroy asteroids, it'll ripple into their shields, overloading them across the fleet. Serrano narrowed her eyes. And the chance of us vaporizing with them? Patel hesitated. Non-zero. Define non-zero. High enough that I'll be praying the entire time. Serrano glanced around. Her bridge. Maya's gaze was steady, Reed's image flickering with grim resolve, Patel vibrating with manic invention. Her crew had followed her through every absurd risk. Could they survive one more? Do it, she ordered. The plan unfolded in fire and desperation. Reed's wanderlust darted into the belt, broadcasting false signals to bait the Drakath deeper. Human and Rulathi ships scattered, feigning retreat. The flagship surged after them, dragging its escorts in pursuit. Patel's jury-rigged. System whined like a dying animal, energy arcing across consoles. Sparks showered the bridge. Almost there, he muttered, sweat dripping into his eyes. Just a few more seconds. Rajiv! Serrano snapped. Light it! With a scream, Patel slammed his hand on the control. The asteroid field ignited. Chain of detonations rippled outward, each amplified by the hybrid field into blinding spears of energy. Shock waves tore through the Drakath formation, ripping shields apart like paper. The flagship staggered, caught in the epicenter, its hull split along jagged seams, spilling fire into the void. One by one, Drakath ships faltered. Some fled outright. Others turned in panic, abandoning their disciplined formation. For the first time, the predators looked like prey. Horizon's bridge erupted in cheers. Reed's voice came through, ragged but jubilant. Now that's fireworks. Patel slumped against his console, half laughing, half crying. It worked. It actually worked. Maya, tears in her eyes, whispered, We showed them, not just that we could fight, but that there's another way to survive. The Drakkith, broken and scattered, retreated into the abyss. Their flagship, once a symbol of terror, lay in pieces, burning quietly in orbit. The system was free. For a long moment, silence reigned. Humanity and the Rulathi floated among wreckage, battered but alive. Then Serrano spoke, her voice steady but soft. "Transmit to all ships. The battle is over. We held the line." The aftermath carried its own weight. The Rulathi gathered their dead, their mandibles clattering solemn hymns. Yet they turned to the humans with something new in their gaze. Not pity for a primitive species, but awe. They had seen humans improvise under fire, adapt where rigid doctrine failed, and inspire where despair reigned. One elder addressed Serrano directly, his voice filtered through the translator. "Your kind was not summoned. You were... mistake. Yet without you, we would be ash. The galaxy will remember this." Serrano gave a weary smile. "We don't mind being a mistake, as long as it's the right one." Later, the crew gathered in Horizon's wardroom. The exhaustion was bone deep, but laughter echoed, ragged, unsteady, yet real. Reed passed around contraband bottles he swore had magically survived the fighting. Patel gesticulated wildly, already planning improvements to his hybrid system. Maya scribbled furiously in her journal, her dream of interspecies unity no longer naive fantasy, but living proof. Serrano sat apart for a moment watching them, a mismatched crew, a fleet cobbled from scraps, a species dismissed as too young to matter. And yet they had stared down giants and endured. She raised her glass. To survival, to mistakes, and to the day the galaxy stops underestimating humanity. The toast rang out, loud and defiant. Outside, the stars burned on, silent witnesses to the moment. A young species announced itself not with conquest or cruelty, but with stubborn, improbable resilience. Humanity had come by accident, but it had stayed by choice, and the galaxy would never be the same.